Hello and welcome back to Sprite Guard Plays HyperRogue. I am feeling a little bit ill today, so I hope that does not negatively impact this episode too much, but that is something to be aware of if I suddenly go mute for some reason. But hopefully things will go well. I have a pretty cool plan for today that I am pretty excited about. And I want to show you something that I worked out. There's a very difficult achievement in this game. Kind of similar to the Nasty Pet achievement. It's going to require us to do quite a lot of things to prepare for it and to set it up. And that is the sort of thing that I like the most in this game, is when I really have to think hard about how something is even possible and work out what it is that I'm going to need in order to make it possible. And I actually, for a very long time, thought that there was no consistent way of getting this achievement. And then I was thinking about doing a demonstration of some of the mathematical properties of this game. And as I was thinking about that, I realized that I could get this achievement if I did everything exactly right. And that might be even more interesting, though I do want to at least try and cover a little bit the demonstration that I wanted to do. It's maybe not as interesting as I'd hoped it would be, but it will be a way for us to pass the time while we are working on some of the more difficult aspects of this achievement. So the first thing that we need to do is just the usual 30 treasures. I'm going to be getting 10 from each land, as I normally do, partly just because of habit, partly because I do want to try and keep things as normal as possible. Things are going to get a bit weird later on, but to begin with I want to really stay in territory that I know well. And being chased by a sandworm through the living cave is a scenario that I'm very familiar with. It has happened to me many times, and it has killed me a few times. I have maybe taken a lot of risks some of the times, because one thing that I was trying to do was find clever, cute ways of killing sandworms, and so I would lead them into a living cave and then try to kill a troll in exactly the right place, and I ended up walling myself up a few times trying to work that out. But I don't want to take too many unnecessary risks, because I really do want to, this is going to be a very complicated achievement to get, and I want to give myself as much of an opportunity to do so successfully as I can. And so really playing things safe is going to be the order of the day. Let's see. Can I get to... what is that? I don't actually know. Oh, that's... right-click as help. I'm trying to think... there we go. Middle click will let me pan. And I can't actually see what land that is. I thought I'd gotten close enough, but apparently not. So we will have to center back on the player. Use spacebar to do that. And see if we can get these guys far enough from the walls that we can get around them. That's not going to work. Alright, so now we're just going to have to kind of cut our losses and run. And hope that we don't get completely trapped. I don't actually want any golems, because in the living cave they can kill trolls at kind of inopportune moments. And I would rather not take that risk. I am going to duck into the desert, because I think I will have a better chance of maneuvering out here. As I've said in the past, it is easy to navigate the desert as long as you don't care where you go, and we definitely do not. So I'm going to grab some shielding, try and touch a couple thumpers, and hopefully we will be right on our way back into the crossroads. So we are actually going to start out kind of going on a little bit of a Yendor quest. We're not going to go all the way, but I am going to be more or less working in that direction. We are going to need to pick up some garnets in order to make this work. Though we're going to have to do some things here later on. So it's not really necessary to get all of the garnets that we need right now. We're really just looking for a beach. And that is going to be basically what's going to signal us to leave the living fjord. Is either we will get actually I may want to stop at 4 garnets at this point, just because we have more important things that we need to do, and I don't want to start summoning water elementals just yet. Mirrored Land will actually be a little bit useful. It's going to have a very subtle effect, but there's going to be one part where we need to do some very thorough searching of the crossroads. And so having some little cue that we have not been in a certain direction is going to be very valuable. And so just getting these mirrors spawning in the crossroads is actually going to have a very subtle effect, but it's going to actually have a positive effect on our ability to progress. And I maybe want to grab that shield, actually, while I'm over here. And then just, we're not going to have it for very long, but just use it to maybe... didn't use it at all, okay. The shields, I think, last so little time that it's actually very difficult to make use of just a single shield like that. Want to make sure we hit these guys in an order that doesn't get us killed. Or even trapped and in trouble, I think, is... we want to actually try and avoid even before we worry about whether or not we're going to get killed. The dogs upstairs, I don't know if... I hope you can't hear them too much. They are just going nuts, so... Now we have an ocean that we can go take a look at and see if we can grab some ambers without too much difficulty. Just going to get as many of those as we can, and I believe we actually timed this out pretty well, so that we won't have the tide coming in too quickly. I believe it was on its way out. And that's 10, so we are done with this area and we can find our way to the shore. There we go. Okay, so now I want to kind of take a moment to pause and think about what we're doing. Phoenix feathers are, of course, going to be necessary, as they always are in these longer adventures that we're going on. We're not going to be able to do it all in a single episode. This could be a very long one. There's a lot that's going to be going on, and there's going to come a point where we will not be able to save, because we are going to need to spend a lot of time in one area, and that might actually end up causing some problems with the timeout ghosts that start appearing if you spend too much time in the same place. I was just watching a run that Vipul did, Vipul is one of the best players in the world at this game, and they just not too long ago posted a video of this run where they very elaborately set it up so that they could get 109 mirror shards. And the setup took so long that they had used tentacles to create these walls all around the mirrored land, and there were just swarms and swarms of ghosts that I can only imagine were timer ghosts, because it took so long to set this up. Basically, he had to lead 2 tentacles through the mirrored land, and I will try and link it try to remember to link it in the description, because it's pretty cool. I think you should check it out. I think it is very much worth watching. So now we are at the question of, okay, where are we going to be getting the rest of the treasures that we need? And I am looking at what we have and what we have yet to get. I think that Relaya is the next really sensible place to go, so I'm going to be scanning for that. I think we would have better luck finding it by going out to sea, but I'm a little bit reluctant to do that because things tend to go badly when I go out to sea, and we won't actually have to do that. We can just come in here, and I'm going to be a little bit cheesy about it. I'm going to try and stay within sight of the crossroads, because we're not in any kind of rush. There's not any limit to how long we can spend doing this. I'm gonna see if I can find my way back to the crossroads from there. There we go. Just had to memorize the line of steps that I took. I just took like 5 steps, memorized them individually. Now I just want to kind of get out of aggro range of that tentacle. Pick up a shield. It may actually end up being very useful, and indeed it was. And now we actually are getting into a situation where we are not really able to do everything that I want to do, and we may even lose our chance. Oh my goodness. Of course that was an orb of safety. We haven't been through the jungle yet, but I don't know what I was thinking. But that's not too bad of a setback. We can just find another Relia. It does take frustratingly long to find it in the crossroads, but it would take frustratingly long to find it in the ocean as well, because we would have to find, first of all, an intertidal zone, and then sail up to the shore and see if it was what we wanted. And instead, I think we're just going to have to grind a little bit and head in a roughly straight line. You know, not too straight of a line, because we will be avoiding monsters, avoiding lands that we don't actually want to go into. And we could maybe try working on some of the other lands that we want to get treasures from, because this is, let's see. Relia will take us up, I think, to 7 types. And then we can get 8 types by going into the fjord. And then we will need a 9th type that will probably, at this rate, be from the graveyard. But that is something that we need to think about. And I would like to get out ahead of this sandworm, if at all possible. It's kind of cramping my style a bit, and we now have actually a couple of water elementals after us. So we can kill that one there, and unfortunately that sandworm is going to prevent us from... we had a pretty good opportunity there to do something that I would have really liked to do, but that sandworm is not going to let us do it, and so we will just have to continue on our way. I think we should be out of its aggro range at this point. And so, if we do get another chance, if we do get another couple of water elementals coming up to us, we will try and take advantage of that. And we can use these trolls to widen the land a little bit. That will give us a little bit more room to work, but there will be many more opportunities for us to kind of get this first setup part done, and so I don't want to overcommit to something that we don't actually need to do yet, especially because I do want to leave myself ample opportunity to split these episodes up, take a break. It is going to be a pretty busy day of adulting for me today. I have been working on some pretty intense adult things, not like pornographic, but like I have been applying for a mortgage, and I have been applying for a job, and so all of that is going to be kind of things that are weighing on my mind and are requiring a lot of responsibility, and I am so glad that I am now making videos about playing video games. So we have 1 orb of water here. We need a boat. Oh, that's our sandworm, so that's actually unfortunate. That's going to make it more difficult to do what we want to do. I would like a 2nd orb of water over here, if we can get it. But what we really need is an orb of water and a boat that is not too far away, and then a minefield that we can get to, and so we nearly have that. The boat that we have available to us is a little bit further away than I would like. So I'm going to see if I can stay out of the sandworm's aggro range and just come out and spawn a few more ocean tiles that will hopefully spawn with Vikings on them. And unfortunately that one spawned somewhere that it landed its boat still a little bit too far away from where we want to go. And so that's not really going to help us. Let's see, there's another boat that's not substantially closer. It may actually be further away, I can't really tell. So I think what we're actually going to need to do is probably... Well, the other thing that we want to do is we want to just spawn a water elemental, which is turning out to be more difficult than I anticipated, because they're usually pretty common, but they are not really aggroing right now, and that is making things a little bit difficult. Having two just gives me more peace of mind, because we're going to need actually to have the Orb of Water active for a little while, and once it goes down, we are actually going to be in a bit of trouble. And so I would like to have as much opportunity as possible. Okay, so here comes a Viking who will hopefully bring his boat nice and close here. There we go, and it looks like unfortunately we'll have to pick up a garnet to get that boat. But I'm going to go for it because we're not getting any water elementals. So that only gives us 30. That may not actually be enough to even get over here. Let's see. So we have our magic boat now, so we don't have to worry about water elementals. And yeah, we're not actually going to be able to do what we wanted. Let's basically the idea is to use the Orb of Water to kind of bust open the minefield a little bit, and unfortunately we're not going to be able to do that. We do have an Orb of the Fish, though. That could be very valuable to us. Not right now, though. I think what we need to do now is really look for a... what is it? Come on, brain. Relia. We're looking for Relia. Because we need to finish that out. And that will get us, I believe, 8 types of the 9 that we need. And then the 10th, or the 9th, I mean, can be either rugs or totems. We will need dead orbs, so probably totems are what we want to go for. And we actually should be spawning graveyards, so that is something else that we will be keeping an eye out for. So whether we see Relia first or a graveyard, we will take whichever of those. And here is a graveyard and a Relia right next to each other. So let's finish up Relia, because I think that will be probably a little bit quicker. I think it's a little bit easier to get stuff from Relia, a little bit easier to cheese it, because there are more tiles in Relia that can spawn treasures than there are in the graveyard. And so we're going to leave that graveyard behind, but we know that we can get another one pretty easily. They are pretty common. And that's going to take us up to 7, 8, and then just find our way back to the crossroads. This will bring us to 9, and that fire cultist actually is going to put a bit of a hamper on our plans. Let's see, we can still go around here though. Okay, that tentacle is very badly timed, but we can see where its ass end is, and so we're going to just go around that, and that should... but now we have this tentacle to deal with, but we can get around it like that, and that timing will work out just fine. So we still need one more statue, and I actually want to... let's see, that's an Orb of Flash. That will work. I was hoping it would be an Orb of Teleport, but of course that's not possible because we hadn't collected... oh dear. Okay, we're just fine, we're fine. We hadn't collected 10 statues yet, but we have now, so now we are looking for a graveyard. And I see one that is a little bit hard for us to get to. There we go. I would like to use this Orb of Flash actually in the graveyard, kind of as deep in as I can, just to really clear out an area where we can maneuver freely, because I think that will make things easier. I do want to try to cheese the graveyard a little bit, and so having this kind of big empty area that we can see that points our way back to the crossroads will actually end up being very valuable to us. And seeing these empty heptagons in the graveyard is they actually stand out pretty well. Now I want to, let's see, there is another totem, so we're going to head over to this one and then try and see if there's one that we can see from here that we can maybe get to while staying within sight of our land markers. And we know what direction the crossroads is from us, and so as long as we're not too far away from it. But we have quite a lot of heat coming at us, so it's kind of going to be a little bit hit or miss whether or not we can actually get back to that crossroads now, because we have just so much stuff after us, and the shadow is going to be giving us some grief here now pretty soon. And so I think that what's going to happen is I'm going to end up getting a little bit turned around just from trying to fight these guys. And so our odds of finding our way back to the crossroads are now pretty slim, just because we got into that trouble. And we can try, let's see, try and find our way back here, but like, see, I'm seeing a totem right there, and so I'm thinking, you know, is this, let's see, that's a minefield. It was a mirrored land that we saw before. There's the mirrored land. So if we head over, kind of over this way, I'm hoping, actually we managed to find our way back. That is pretty cool. So one thing that we can do, now can we see from the edge? Yes, we can see a heptagon from the edge of this mirrored land. And so we could even kind of skirt along it and use it as a guidepost as well. And that will let us cover actually a lot of ground. And then we can just find our way back there, and the shadow is going to be, of course, chasing after us. So that is something that we need to be aware of. And then we can see our empty heptagon, excuse me. Now what is this? That's an orb of air. That's not especially useful. I'm thinking something that we might actually want to do is kind of go along the edges of some of these other lands and see if we can find an orb of flash out in the crossroads somewhere, and just use kind of that we know what land we're following alongside and what direction we're going to try and find our way back to the graveyard that we've been working on. So we can actually explore quite a lot of land just by using the lands that we go past as landmarks. And of course that's a pretty risky strategy, but as long as we're careful to turn back when we see a graveyard so that we don't end up going past multiple graveyards, I think we'll actually be in pretty good shape. And that's an orb of teleport, so that's not actually going to help us. It may actually be a lot quicker and more profitable to just try and cheese the graveyard in the usual way. You know, we don't have great odds of finding totems really close to the crossroads, but we only need 3 more, and so I think that it may be not too difficult. Like, there's one right there. And let's see. There's one that I'm a little bit worried about going after, but let's see. We can backtrack a little bit. Oh dear. Okay, that's what I was worried about. Yeah. So now we're in very much the same situation that we were in, but now we have seen where the shadow was coming from, so that was very helpful to be able to see that and see where we had been. And so once again we're finding our way back to the crossroads, and here's another one that we can actually get to while staying well within sight of the crossroads, and that will be the last one that we need. And so now we actually want to go into the crossroads and start looking for dead orbs. And I think probably this is where I'm going to cut off the episode, because we have accomplished quite a lot. We are still going to be looking for a hell, and I think probably what I'll do is I'll start our kind of wrap-up spiel and start looking for dead orbs and looking for hell. And as we go along, I will also keep my eye out for an orb of safety, though we're probably not actually quite ready for one just yet. But we're going to be looking for dead orbs, and we're going to be looking for hell, and we've actually got one here. We're going to grab some demon daisies, and then we're going to drop into an orb of safety and wrap up the segment there. I'm so wanting to call these episodes that I may have to change my numbering scheme, just because I have such a tendency to want to call them episodes, but I don't actually think it's all that important if my habits don't always align with my desires. But I really like the way that I'm numbering them so far. I recognize that it's a little bit strange, but I think I kind of like that it's a little bit strange. I mentioned in a previous episode that I kind of have a love of strange and sometimes suboptimal things. So that is going to be our 10th Demon Daisy. We can actually head out. That is an orb of safety right there, so we are going to plop down into that. In the next part of the episode, we will continue working on this great big achievement quest, this very complicated. We have not even really started to scratch the surface of what all we are doing here. We will be cheesing out the minefield in the next part of the episode, using an orb of water to try and grab up as many eggs as we can before the orb of water runs out, and then we will be looking to start clearing out the minefield. And we will want to get some orbs of friendship. We will need at least 7. We will want to start looking for an orb of air, and little by little, we will start putting the pieces together. So I hope that you will join me as we continue to go on this strange adventure. And I hope that we will make it together. But most of all, thank you very much for watching, and have a great rest of your day.